Hi James, why there are so many sects in Christianity and what's the main difference in them?
So that's a great question. And I think the first thing that is worth doing is putting this in some familiar terms. So in Islam, you have big divisions like Sunni, Shia, and Ibadi Islam. And you kind of know if you belong to one of those things. It's not something you're ignorant to. But then under those, you have like madhabs or schools of thought like Hanbali, Hanafi, Shafi, and Maliki. Or in Shia, you've got like Zaydis. And with those, you might not actually know if you belong to one of those or not, because there are some sort of debates within those, between those schools. And if you're like a regular Muslim, there might be a slight difference depending on what kind of masjid you go to, but other than that, it's not a super pronounced difference between them. So in Christianity, there are essentially four main divisions. There's Eastern Orthodoxy, Roman Catholicism, Protestantism, and liberal Christianity. So let's go right back to the start and see where these come from. So after Jesus rose from the dead, when he delegated authorities to his apostles, they went all throughout the world teaching people about Christianity and appointing new leaders in these churches and then teaching them the whole Bible, basically. And then they'd move on to the next city. However, the apostles never appointed any more apostles. What they did do is they wrote the New Testament and then they delegated their authority to this plurality of local leaders. Not one man, but a plurality. So what would happen over the next 300 years is there's a gradual shift from having a plurality of leaders at the local level to having one leader known as a bishop over every single city. And then from 300 AD onwards, you have this other important shift, which is this shift to something called the allegorical way of interpreting the Bible. So before that, people basically take the Bible at face value. But the allegorical school believes that each Bible story has a hidden mystical meaning. Now, the average person can understand on face value what the Bible is saying, but if there's a mystery allegory behind every passage, then you have to be a scholar to understand that. And so what happens is you have this shift in emphasis from about 300 to 500 away from the average person can read and understand the Bible to you have to be a church leader or a scholar in order to interpret the Bible properly. And then to make things worse, the Western Roman Empire collapses in 480 AD, and with it, the Latin language. So you have church leaders speaking Latin, but regular people are not. And then in the East, people are still speaking Greek. And then in 1054, which incidentally is in the Islamic Golden Age, you have the East-West Schism, which is a split between Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. And there's lots of things they disagree about, but the biggest one is who should be the leader of all Christians everywhere. So the Roman Catholics believe that the Pope in Rome should be the leader of all Christians everywhere. And then the Eastern Orthodox believe that the Council of Bishops between the major cities in the East should lead all Christians everywhere. So then over the next 500 years after the division, you have people in the East and the West who are arguing about different things their leaders are doing. Some of these people are killed. Some of these people see some success. But then in 1517, there's a Catholic monk named Martin Luther who's trying to start some healthy debate and inadvertently create something called the Protestant Reformation. And the main idea of the Protestant Reformation is that everybody is capable of understanding the Bible themselves, and that the Bible should be the final authority for all faith and practice, meaning that everything the leaders say, everything that tradition teaches should be tested by the Bible itself. And this leads to Protestant Christianity, which has some subdivisions in that as well, like Baptists, Presbyterians, Anglicans, Methodists. Again, these are kind of like the Sunni madhabs, so there'd be differences on the exact structure of how people should be led. There's difference on like mode of baptism. Should people be immersed underwater? Should people have water sprinkled on them? Do you baptize adults only, or can you baptize children as well? And so these kind of like basic divisions, but basically everyone in these would look at each other and consider each other true believers. And then in the 17 to 1800s, you start to get the invention of liberal Christianity. This idea that the Bible isn't actually God's word at all. It's actually the words of people giving their theories about God, and we're basically free to interpret it however we feel. So there's essentially 3 doors in front of you. Door number 1 is the liberal door, which is you basically put your feelings and thoughts on the throne of reality and interpret all religion around that. Door number 2 is the Catholic or Orthodox door, and what you have to do there is you have to kind of examine each tradition, look at which leaders and institution you find most compelling, and figure out which people who claim to be following God you should be following. Or you have door number 3, in which you study the Bible for yourself, you see what it says, and then use that as a standard by which you examine everything. Thanks for watching. If you have more questions, why not check out the other videos in this series? If we haven't answered your question yet, you can submit it to almeida.org/ask. We aim to answer one question every week. Like and subscribe for more content.